Introduction: the context of Jesus' life under Roman rule. The life of Jesus Christ is one of the most influential stories in human history. To understand his life and ministry fully, it's crucial to examine the world in which he lived, specifically, the Roman Empire's vast influence over Judea and its people. Jesus lived at the intersection of religious tradition and political domination. As a Jew living in Roman-occupied Judea, Jesus' teachings were both a continuation of Jewish traditions and a radical response to the Roman occupation. Judea in the 1st century AD was a region of tension. The Jewish people had long awaited the arrival of the Messiah, a figure who would liberate them from their oppressors. However, in this period, the oppressor was not just a foreign king or neighboring tribe, it was the mighty Roman Empire, which had conquered Judea and was forcing the Jewish people to live under Roman laws and taxation. This introduction sets the stage for exploring how Roman rule shaped the spiritual and practical aspects of Jesus' ministry. Let us delve into the complexities of Jesus' world, examining how the Roman Empire's power and influence affected everything from his birth to his crucifixion. Part 1: Roman occupation of Judea, a complex political landscape. Judea was a province in the Roman Empire, governed by local rulers who were under Roman control. The region was technically ruled by the Roman emperor, but on a day-to-day basis, it was governed by local kings or governors who were loyal to Rome. This political arrangement meant that the Jewish people were caught between their desire for independence and the harsh realities of Roman domination. Roman governance in Judea. The Roman Empire controlled Judea through a series of appointed rulers. One of the most significant of these figures was Herod the Great, who was known for his grand building projects, including the renovation of the Second Temple in Jerusalem. Though Herod was technically a Jewish king, he was deeply loyal to Rome, and his reign was marked by oppression, heavy taxes, and political intrigue. After Herod's death, Judea was divided among his sons, but the Roman Empire took direct control of the region in 6 AD, appointing Pontius Pilate as governor. Pilate was known for his harsh treatment of the Jews, often causing unrest. Under Roman law, the Jewish people were required to pay taxes to Caesar, and Roman soldiers were stationed throughout Judea to maintain order. Roman control and Jewish rebellion. The constant pressure from the Roman Empire created a situation ripe for rebellion. Jewish zealots, passionate about the idea of a liberating Messiah, began to resist Roman rule through violent uprisings. These revolts were often crushed by the Romans, but they contributed to the social and political turmoil in which Jesus lived. Jesus' ministry must be understood against this backdrop of political unrest. His teachings were in direct contrast to the zealots who sought violent overthrow. Instead, Jesus preached love, forgiveness, and peace, urging people to turn the other cheek rather than take up arms. Part 2: Jesus' birth and the Roman context. Jesus was born during the reign of Caesar Augustus, the first Roman emperor, who initiated significant reforms and expansion of the Roman Empire. Augustus' reign brought stability and prosperity to much of the empire, but it was a period of great hardship for many of the occupied provinces, including Judea. The Roman census and the birth of Jesus. One of the most well-known events in the story of Jesus' birth is the census decreed by Caesar Augustus, which required everyone to return to their ancestral towns for registration. This decree brought Mary and Joseph to Bethlehem, fulfilling the prophecy that the Messiah would be born there. The Roman census served as a reminder of Roman power, as it was a Roman decree that led to the fulfillment of a key part of Jewish prophecy. Although the census was likely a routine event, it also underscores the oppressive nature of Roman governance. The Jewish people were forced to comply with Roman law, even in matters as personal as the place of their birth. This moment in the life of Jesus highlights how Roman control impacted every aspect of life for the Jewish people, even in the most sacred of events. The Nativity story, a subtle critique of Roman power. The Nativity story itself provides a subtle critique of Roman authority. While the Roman Empire was at its height, its emperor, Augustus, was regarded as a god by many of his followers. In contrast, Jesus was born not in a palace or under the protection of the Roman authorities, but in a humble manger, in a poor, occupied province. This humble birth marked the beginning of a life that would challenge the very structures of power and domination that Rome represented. Part 3: The early life of Jesus, between Roman influence and Jewish tradition. The early life of Jesus is largely unknown. with very little recorded about his childhood. However, it is clear that he was raised in a Jewish home in Nazareth, a small town in Galilee. Galilee was less directly controlled by the Romans than Judea, but Roman influence was still pervasive, especially in matters like taxes and military presence. Jewish identity and Roman influence. Despite Roman rule, Jesus was raised in the Jewish faith and would have followed the customs and traditions of Judaism. This included attending synagogue, celebrating Jewish festivals, and learning Jewish scriptures. His connection to his Jewish roots would remain central throughout his life and teachings. However, the presence of Roman soldiers and Roman laws would have been a constant part of life in Galilee. Jesus, like many Jews at the time, would have been acutely aware of the political realities surrounding him, even if he did not directly engage in them. His teachings about justice, peace, and forgiveness might have been in part a response to the oppressive nature of Roman authority. Part 4: The Ministry of Jesus, a challenge to Roman and Jewish authority. As Jesus began his public ministry, he preached a message that both challenged the Roman Empire and questioned the religious authorities of his own people. His message of the kingdom of God was a radical departure from the political realities of the time, especially the Roman system of power. Jesus and the Roman authorities. While Jesus did not directly incite rebellion against Rome, his teachings were seen as a threat to the established order. His message of equality, love, and compassion challenged the hierarchical nature of Roman society. Moreover, his claim to be the king of the Jews placed him at odds with both the Roman authorities and the Jewish religious leaders, who feared that his growing popularity could incite rebellion. The Roman authorities were deeply concerned with maintaining order in their provinces, and any movement that seemed to threaten that order was met with suspicion. As Jesus gained followers, the Roman leaders likely saw him as a potential troublemaker, even if he did not actively oppose Roman rule. Part 5: The Trial of Jesus, Roman Law and Jewish Custom. The trial of Jesus before Pontius Pilate is one of the most significant events in the Gospels. The trial itself is a mix of Roman and Jewish legal practices, reflecting the intersection of the two systems of law that governed Judea at the time. Roman and Jewish legal systems. The trial of Jesus highlights the complex relationship between Roman law and Jewish customs. The Jewish religious leaders brought Jesus to Pilate, accusing him of blasphemy and claiming that he threatened to destroy the temple. Under Jewish law, such an accusation could result in a death sentence. However, the Jewish authorities did not have the power to execute someone, which is why they brought Jesus before Pilate in the first place. Pilate, as the Roman governor, had the authority to decide whether Jesus should be executed. His decision to have Jesus crucified was likely influenced by a desire to maintain control over the Jewish population and avoid an uprising. Crucifixion, a method of execution reserved for criminals and enemies of the state, was the Roman punishment for those who threatened Roman authority. Part 6: Jesus' Crucifixion, a Roman method of execution. Crucifixion was one of the most brutal and humiliating forms of execution in the ancient world, reserved for the worst criminals. It was a punishment specifically designed to break the spirit of the condemned and to serve as a public display of Roman power. The Roman practice of crucifixion. Crucifixion was a form of execution that the Romans used to maintain control over their vast empire. It was intended to send a message: those who defied Roman authority would face the most excruciating and humiliating end. The process involved nailing the condemned person to a cross and leaving them to die, often taking days. The crucifixion of Jesus was not just a method of execution, it was also a public spectacle. Roman authorities likely hoped that by publicly executing Jesus in such a humiliating and painful way, they could deter others from following his example. The cross, however, became a symbol of hope for Christians, representing Jesus' sacrifice for humanity's sins. Conclusion: the enduring legacy of Jesus under Roman rule. The life and ministry of Jesus must be understood within the context of Roman rule. Jesus did not seek to overthrow the Roman Empire, but his teachings and actions posed a challenge to the established order. His message of love, peace, and the kingdom of God was revolutionary in a world dominated by imperial power and religious oppression. Jesus' crucifixion, executed by the Romans, marked the tragic culmination of his ministry. However, his resurrection, as Christians believe, transcended Roman authority and became the cornerstone of Christian faith. Despite the Roman Empire's power, Jesus' legacy endures, influencing billions of people around the world. This script begins to lay the foundation for a deeper dive into the historical context of Jesus' life under Roman rule. It explores political, cultural, and legal aspects that directly influenced his ministry. We can continue expanding this narrative over multiple parts to develop the 30-hour length by diving further into each specific event, adding historical details, and providing commentary on the impacts of Roman rule on Jesus and his followers.